I was passing through the hallway of the house that I built brick by brick when I heard my son Roberto's voice coming from the dining room. It was a Thursday, 4:30 in the afternoon, the golden October light streaming in through the windows that I had installed 15 years ago. My steps have always been silent, a consequence of decades working as a nurse on night shifts where silence was the law. That's why they didn't hear me coming. Roberto was talking to my daughter Daniela, and the tone was that of a business meeting, not a conversation between brothers visiting their mother. I stopped before turning the corner when I heard my name said in a way that froze me. Roberto said, in a low but clear voice, that according to life expectancy for my age and medical history, I had perhaps 8 years left, at most 10. Daniela responded with a short laugh and said that it was a long time, that the house needed renovations that would only be worth it when it was in their name, that keeping everything as it was throwing money away, hoping that the old woman would finally solve her problem of staying alive. I felt my stomach turn, heat rising up my neck, my hands starting to shake. I had to lean on the wall. My legs wobbled as if I'd been punched in the stomach. Roberto said something about me being too healthy for my age of 72, that this complicated the plans. And Daniela laughed again, a laugh I didn't recognize, and asked if I couldn't speed things up somehow, maybe by stopping buying those expensive blood pressure medications that I took religiously every single day at 7 in the morning. My heart raced so much that I thought I was going to have a heart attack right there in that hallway, proving that they were right, that my body was really a time bomb, disrupting their lives. I stood frozen for perhaps 2 full minutes, unable to process what I was hearing, unable to believe that those words were coming from the children I breastfed, rocked on fever nights, dressed and shod and fed for decades as their father slowly died of lung cancer. My name is Elena Martinez. I'm 72 years old. I live in Tampa, Florida, and at that moment, standing in the hallway of my own house, I discovered that my children were literally awaiting my death, like someone waiting for a package to be delivered. I took a deep breath, dried the tears that began to fall out of control, and decided to enter the room. When I turned the corner, they turned around, scared. Daniela had a notebook open on the table. She quickly closed it. Roberto choked in the middle of a sentence. I asked what they were talking about with a forced smile that hurt the muscles in my face. Roberto said it was just family planning, boring adult stuff. Daniela agreed too quickly, too nervously, her eyes moving away from mine. Before continuing, if you have already experienced family betrayal, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because this story goes far, and revenge will be proportional to the pain. Comment which city you're watching from because I need to know I'm not alone in this. I pretended to believe them at that moment because my mind was still trying to find another explanation. Any explanation other than the obvious one. I made coffee, served it with cake I had made in the morning, and sat with them at the table as if nothing had happened. But my ears were attentive to every word. My whole body was on high alert. When they left an hour later, I hugged each one and felt like I was hugging strangers. Daniela was 38 years old. Roberto was 42, both with their own families, their own homes, new cars, stable jobs. I had raised them alone since Miguel, my husband, died 17 years ago. Miguel was Mexican, a man with calloused hands who worked as an electrician for 35 years, who loved me in a way I could never quite explain, who died apologizing for leaving me alone to finish raising the children. He was 58 years old when the cancer took him, and he took it slowly, cruelly slowly, during 2 years of treatments that drained our savings, but that we insisted on trying all of them because giving up was not in our vocabulary. As soon as Roberto and Daniela left, I ran back to the dining room. The notebook that Daniela closed too quickly had remained there, forgotten in the rush to hide what they were doing. I opened it with shaking hands. It was a common notebook, black cover, one of those with a spiral. The first few pages had old shopping lists, phone numbers, nothing much. But on page 7 I found it. It was all there, written in my daughter's neat cursive handwriting. At the top of the page, she had written Planning M, and below that a timeline. Year 2023, current year, marked with my current age, 72 years old. After project lines walk future years, 2024, 73, 2025, 74, and so on until 2032, where there was a red circle around the number 80 and the word probable written next to it. Below that was a list of assets. My house, valued at $420,000, according to her note. My savings account at Bank of America, worth approximately $110,000. My car, a 2019 Honda Civic, valued at $18,000. Stocks I had purchased years ago, with an estimated current value of $65,000. My life insurance worth $200,000 with Roberto and Daniela as beneficiaries. Grand total, she calculated, $813,000 to be divided 50-50 when I died. But what completely broke me was the next section. It was titled Monthly Costs M, and below was a detailed list of my expenses. High blood pressure medication, $195 a month. Cholesterol meds, $83. Vitamin supplements, $60. Medical appointments, average $300 a month. Supermarket, $500. Electricity, water, gas, internet, telephone, totaling $340. Gasoline, $100. Monthly total, $1,478. And below that, in larger font, underlined twice, unnecessary expenses that could be invested. My vision became blurry. I sat on the chair because my legs could no longer support me. I read and reread those words. They had calculated how much I cost alive. How long would it still cost me? How much money would they make when I finally stopped costing? I turned the page, and there was more. A list of renovations they wanted to do to the house. Replace the living room floor, $25,000. Renovate the kitchen, $40,000. Build a gourmet area in the backyard, $35,000. Next to each item was a note. Wait. Wait for what? Wait for me to die. On the last page of that damned section, there was something even worse. It was a transcribed conversation, probably from their WhatsApp group. Daniela had written, R says that M is too healthy. And below, I suggested reducing the medication, but R thought it was risky. Then, best to let nature take its course. And finally, in red letters, the less we spend on it now, the more there will be for us later. I sat in that chair until the sun completely set. I couldn't move. My body had turned to stone. My mind was running in circles trying to understand how I had gotten to that point. How the babies I held against my chest had become people capable of making spreadsheets about my death. When it got completely dark and the room was only lit by the kitchen light that I had forgotten to turn on, I finally got up. I took the notebook and went to the kitchen trash can. I was going to throw it away, hide it from myself, pretend I hadn't seen it. But when I opened the trash can lid, I saw another piece of paper. It was a printed sheet, half crumpled, as if someone had thrown it there in anger. I took it and unkneaded it. It was a printout from a life insurance website. It had my name at the top, Elena Martinez, date of birth March 15th, 1951. And there was a life expectancy calculation based on medical history. According to that website, considering that I had controlled blood pressure, controlled cholesterol, didn't smoke, didn't drink, took walks 3 times a week, my expectation was to live until I was 87 years old. But someone had circled the number 80 in red and written next to it, a long time. I recognized the handwriting. It was Roberto's. I spent that entire night sitting awake on the sofa in the living room, the notebook in one hand, the printed paper in the other. I didn't cry. I think I was beyond tears. My body was in a state of shock, that feeling of cotton wool in my head, of watching everything from afar, of it not being real, but it was real. Every word on those pages was real. Every cold calculation about how long I had left to live was real. Every strategy discussed about how to minimize spending with me was real. When the sun rose on Friday at 6:45 in the morning, I was still there, same position, same clothes, without having eaten or drunk anything. My cell phone had rang 11 times during the night, 8 calls from Daniela, 3 from Roberto. I didn't answer any. They had realized that the notebook was left. They were in a panic. They left messages that I read without opening, just because of the preview notification. Mom, I need to get something from there. Mom, call me when you wake up. Mom, I left a notebook there. Please don't touch it. Mom, respond for the love of God. I turned off the cell phone. I didn't want to hear their voices. I couldn't even think about listening to those voices that had calmly discussed tapering off my meds to see if I died faster. I tried to get up from the couch at 9 in the morning and my legs gave out. I hadn't eaten since lunch the day before. I dragged myself to the kitchen and held onto the sink so I wouldn't fall. I opened the refrigerator and looked at the food inside. I had made Mexican rice 2 days before, roasted chicken, there was fruit, There was bread that I had prepared myself on Wednesday. Everything seemed to belong to another life, the life where I was a real mother, where I had real children. I closed the refrigerator without taking anything. My stomach turned at the thought of swallowing something. I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. I didn't recognize myself. The woman looking back had sunken, red eyes, pale skin, messy white hair, and slumped shoulders. He looked like he had aged 10 years in one night. I looked exactly like I was, a 72-year-old woman who had just discovered she was dead weight to her own children. I showered with hot water, then cold water, trying to wake up, trying to feel something other than that huge emptiness in my chest. I wore some random outfit, gray sweatpants, an old white blouse, flip-flops. I didn't get ready. I didn't see any point in dressing up. For what? For whom? I sat down on the sofa again and picked up the notebook again. I read every word again, every number, every calculation, every plan. The coldness of those notes cut me like glass. There was no affection there, no consideration, no moral doubts. It was purely transactional. I was an asset that wasn't available yet, a stuck investment that they wanted to liquidate. I started thinking about all the times I had helped them. When Roberto graduated in civil engineering, I paid for the last 2 semesters because his scholarship had been cut. It was $18,500 that I took from the savings that Miguel and I had saved for 20 years. I never charged back. He promised to pay as soon as he found a good job, but then said he was building his life, which I would understand. I understood and forgave the debt. When Daniela married Thomas, I paid for half of the wedding. It was $23,000 for the party, dresses, decorations, buffet, because her father had already died, and I wanted to give that to my daughter. She cried with happiness, hugging me on the dance floor, saying I was the best mother in the world. When Roberto lost his job in 2018 during his company crisis, I paid his rent for 7 months. It was $9,800. He hugged me crying, saying he didn't know what he would do without me. When Daniela's daughter, my granddaughter Clara, needed orthodontic braces and the plan didn't cover it, I paid the $5,200 for the complete treatment. Daniela said she was going to pay me back in installments, but she never paid and I never collected. I did the math that Friday morning with the notebook on my lap. He had given them, over the years, a total of $56,500. Not to mention birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, minor help here and there, food that I prepared and sent to their homes every week. And what had I gotten back? Spreadsheets calculating when I would die. At 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, there was a knock on the door. I didn't answer. They knocked again. I heard Roberto's voice calling, "Mom, open the door, I'm worried." I stayed quiet on the couch. I heard him trying to use the key he had for the house, but I had put the security chain on, so the door only opened a few centimeters. "Mom, for God's sake, what's going on?" I responded for the first time in almost 24 hours. My voice was hoarse, strangled. "Go away." There was silence on the other side. Then he tried again. "Mom, let me come in. We need to talk." I got up from the couch and went to the door. I looked at him through the 4-inch gap. Roberto was 42 years old, dark hair starting to turn gray at the temples, brown eyes like his father, 5 feet 8 inches tall, wearing a suit because he had come straight from work. He looked tired. He seemed worried, but it wasn't concern for me. It was concern about the notebook. I asked in a firmer voice, "Did you read what's in that notebook?" I saw him swallow hard. "Mom, let me explain." Answer, "Did you read it?" "Yes, but did you write any of those things?" Another silence. "Some, but Mom, you have to understand the context." I felt something different being born inside me. It was no longer pain. It was anger, cold anger, clear anger. I spoke slowly. "The context is that you are waiting for me to die to divide my inheritance, and you think I am taking too long to do this favor." Roberto tried to interrupt, but I continued. "The context is that you calculated how much I cost per month and consider my medicine costs unnecessary. The context is that my daughter suggested stopping buying my medication to see if it accelerates my death." And it turned white. "It wasn't like that. You didn't understand. So explain to me. Explain to me that part where it says that the less you spend on me now, the more you will have left later. Explain to me that paper that you threw in the trash where you circled my life expectancy and wrote for a long time. Explain to me." He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I waited. Nothing. I closed the door in his face and put the safety lock on it. I heard him on the other side. "Mom, don't do that. Let's talk like adults." I replied through the door, Adults don't plan their own mother's death as if it were a financial investment. Adults don't calculate how much their mother costs alive. Get out of my house. Mom, go away, I screamed with a strength I didn't know I had. I scared even myself. I heard him sigh on the other side, footsteps moving away, car starting, leaving. I went back to the couch and shook for half an hour straight. My whole body was shaking with anger, with sadness, with the shock still being processed. Daniela called 17 times that afternoon. He sent 42 messages. I read some. Mom, please answer me. Mom, I know you're upset, but it was all misunderstood. Mom, Roberto is desperate. Mom, don't ruin our relationship because of this. Mom, you're being dramatic. That last one made me laugh. A bitter, joyless laugh. I was being dramatic about being upset that my kids wanted me to die soon. Of course, the problem was me. It always was. I spent the weekend locked up at home. I didn't eat almost anything. A piece of toast on Saturday morning that I threw up an hour later. Half a glass of juice on Sunday afternoon. I lost 3.5 kilos in 3 days. My blood pressure must have been high, but I didn't measure it. Part of me thought with bitter irony that maybe I should really stop taking the medications as Daniela had suggested, solve their problem once and for all. But that part didn't last long, because another part of me, deeper, angrier, began to wake up. It was the part that had survived her husband's death, the part that had raised 2 children alone, working double shifts at the hospital, the party that had held the line when the house was almost foreclosed on by the bank in 2009. That part didn't want to die. That part wanted justice. On Monday morning, 8 o'clock sharp, I called the law firm of Carter & Associates on Franklin Street in Tampa. I asked for an urgent consultation. They had a free time at 10 in the morning. I accepted. I got ready for the first time in 4 days. Long bath, brushed hair, business clothes, black pants, white blouse, black closed shoes, light makeup to hide dark circles. I looked in the mirror and saw a different woman than the one on Friday. Still hurt, still broken, but standing. The office was in a glass building in the center, waiting room with brown leather armchairs. A blonde secretary in her 30s offered me coffee, which I accepted. It was bad, but I drank it anyway. I needed caffeine. At 10:15, they called me. I entered a large room with a mahogany table, shelves of legal books, and a window overlooking the city. Behind the table was lawyer Robert Carter, a 54-year-old white man with well-cut gray hair, black-rimmed glasses, and a navy blue suit. He greeted me with a firm handshake and showed me to the chair in front of his desk. I sat down. He asked how he could help. I opened my bag and placed the notebook on the table. Then the paper with my life expectancy circled. I spoke for 40 minutes without stopping. I told everything, every detail, every word heard, each number calculated, every monstrous plan of my children. Dr. Carter listened silently, taking notes. When I finished, he looked at the documents for a long time. Then he took off his glasses, cleaned them with a tissue, put them back on, and said, "Mrs. Martinez, what your children did may not technically be a crime because estate planning is not illegal. But the way they did it, and especially the conversations about decreasing their medication, could amount to attempted murder, or at the very least coercion and elder abuse. Do you want to prosecute criminally or civilly?" I thought for a moment. I want my money back. I want to get them out of my inheritance. I want them to learn that I'm not an object waiting to be liquidated. I want justice. He nodded. Let's start with the civil side then. We have a basis for a claim for the amounts borrowed that were never returned, a basis for a claim for moral damages for the suffering caused, a basis for you to change your will and life insurance removing them as beneficiaries. I can also file a protective measure preventing them from approaching you or your residence. How much do you estimate you have lent over the years? $56,500 that I can prove with wire transfers and receipts. Good. With interest and monetary correction, we are talking about approximately $78,000 today. How much moral damage is, do you think it's fair? I hadn't thought about that. I don't know. How much is it worth to find out that your children want you dead? He counted on the calculator. We're going to ask for $300,000 in moral damages. It is high but justifiable, given the documented psychological trauma. In total, $378,000, plus my 30% fee on whatever we recover. Are you able to pay the initial costs of the process? It's around $5,000. Yes. Then let's go ahead. I need you to bring me all proof of transfers, all receipts, all WhatsApp conversations you have, everything that proves both the loans and the emotional abuse. How long will it take? I can bring it tomorrow. Perfect. One last thing, Mrs. Martinez. Are you absolutely sure about this? Because suing your own children will destroy any chance of reconciliation. It's a door that closes definitively. I looked into his eyes. They closed that door when they calculated how much I cost alive. I'm just locking her up. I spent Monday afternoon and all of Tuesday putting together each document, bank statements from the last 20 years, transfers to Roberto's account, $18,500 in December of 2013 for college, $9,800 in installments of $1,400 between March and September of 2018 for rent. Transfers to Daniela's account, $5,200 in January of 2020 for Clara's orthodontics. Check for $23,000 for the wedding buffet in June 2015. Receipts, old WhatsApp conversations where they thanked us and promised to give back. Roberto in a message dated September 14, 2018. Mother, thank you very much for holding the line here. I swear that when I get back on my feet, I will pay you everything with interest. Daniela in a message from March 5, 2020. Mom, you are an angel. Clara looks beautiful with her new smile. I'll give you that money back. You can leave it. They never returned it. I printed everything. I organized it in transparent folders with dividers. On Wednesday at 9 in the morning, I returned to Dr. Carter's office with 3 full folders. He spent the entire morning reviewing it. At noon, he called me back to his room. It's perfect, better than I expected. You are organized, Mrs. Martinez. I worked 38 years as a nurse. Organization was a must. He smiled. I'm going to file the action today. Your children will probably be notified on Friday. Get ready because the reaction will be intense. I'm prepared. I lied. I wasn't prepared. On Friday at 3:20 in the afternoon, my cell phone exploded. Roberto called 12 times in a row. I didn't answer. Daniela sent a message in all caps. Mom, are you crazy? Did you sue us? Did you sue your own children? Have you lost your mind? I turned off my cell phone. At 5 in the afternoon, there was a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole. It was the 2 of them, Roberto and Daniela together, both with furious faces. I didn't open it. Roberto shouted through the door, Mom, open this door now! I didn't respond. Daniela shouted, You won't be able to do this. No judge will tell you right. Roberto again, You're destroying this family because of a misunderstanding. I sat on the couch listening to them scream for 20 minutes. Neighbors must have heard everything. I didn't care. When they finally left, I turned my cell phone back on. I had 63 unread messages. I read some. Thomas, Daniela's husband. Elena, we need to talk calmly about this. Sarah, Roberto's wife. I can't believe you did this to my husband. Clara, my granddaughter, 15 years old. Grandma, why are you doing this to my parents? Each message was a stab, but each stab made me firmer because none of them asked if I was okay. They all just accused me of destroying the family. 3 weeks later, the situation escalated. Dr. Carter called me on a Tuesday morning. Mrs. Martinez, your children have hired a lawyer. They are countering that the loans were actually gifts with no expectation of repayment, and that their claims of moral harm are unfounded and dramatized. They're also questioning your mental capacity. I felt my blood freeze. What? They're claiming that a sane person wouldn't sue their own children, that this is evidence of senile dementia, that you need a legal guardian. They're asking for a ban. I started to shake. It was exactly what I was afraid of. Can they do that? They can ask. But they won't make it. You clearly have all your mental faculties. We can easily prove it with psychiatric evaluation. In fact, this only strengthens our case because it shows desperation on their part and confirms the abuse. Let me guess. If they manage to ban you, and they would be named your trustees and have access to your assets. Exactly. It's a dirty but predictable move. Don't worry. Let's fight back. I will request a psychiatric evaluation from you, and I will attach their notebook to the file as proof that the interdiction attempt is bad faith to take your assets prematurely, which ironically is exactly the elder abuse that they deny having committed. On Thursday, I was evaluated by Dr. Patricia Gomez, a 61-year-old forensic psychiatrist. Her office was in Dale Mabry. She did cognitive tests on me for 3 hours. Memory, perfect. Logical reasoning, perfect. Temporal orientation and spatial ability, perfect. Ability to make decisions, perfect. At the end, she said, Mrs. Martinez, your mind is sharper than many people of 50. There are no signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, or any cognitive impairment. What you have is severe emotional trauma caused by family abuse, which is completely different. I'm going to put all of this in my report. I left there relieved, but also sad. Because if there was something wrong with me, at least it would be an explanation. At least it would mean that my children were normal people who were just dealing with their sick mother inappropriately. But no, I was fine. They were the ones who were cruel. I came home, and for the first time in weeks, I was able to eat a full meal. I made rice, black beans, grilled chicken, salad. I ate slowly. Each bite was an act of rebellion against their idea of I was going to keep living, I was going to keep eating, I was going to keep taking my expensive medicines. 2 months after filing the process, in January 2024, the first hearing took place. Tampa Courthouse, Room 23, Judge Helen Morrison presiding. I arrived with Dr. Carter at 9 in the morning. Roberto and Daniela were already there with their lawyer, Dr. Michael Stevens, a man in his 40s in a gray suit. I didn't look at my children. I sat on the other side of the room. The judge, a 58-year-old black woman with hair tied in a bun, called order at 9:15. Mandatory conciliation hearing before going to trial. She asked Dr. Stevens to present a settlement proposal. He stood up. Your Excellency, my clients recognize that there was a breakdown in communication with your mother. They propose to return the amounts borrowed in installments of $1,000 per month for 78 months and ask that the action for moral damages be withdrawn. The judge looked at me. Ms. Martinez? Dr. Carter answered for me. My client rejects it. Borrowed amounts must be paid in full and immediately, not in installments. And the action for moral damages continues for the reasons already stated in the case file, including the notebook and paper that literally planned her death as a financial event. The judge asked to see the documents. She spent 15 minutes reading them. When she finished, she looked at Roberto and Daniela with an expression that I couldn't decipher. Did you really write that? Daniela tried to explain. Your Excellency, it was just normal succession planning. Any family does it. Succession planning does not include calculating the living person's monthly expenses as waste of money or discussing the reduction of essential medicines. Silence. Roberto tried. It was taken out of context. Then give me the context. Neither of them succeeded. The judge sighed. I'll be clear. This case is one of the saddest I have ever seen in this court. You have 2 options. Agree to pay the $78,000 immediately plus $50,000 in moral damages, a total of $128,000, or we go to trial, and I guarantee it will be much worse for you. Decide by the next hearing in 30 days. The gavel hit. Hearing closed. When I left the room, Daniela followed me into the hallway. She grabbed my arm. Mom, for the love of God, stop it. I took my arm out of her hand. Let me go. Are you going to destroy our family because of money? I laughed. A dry, bitter laugh. Me? Will I destroy? Daniela, you made a spreadsheet calculating when I was going to die. You are the ones who destroyed it. I'm just collecting the bill. It was just talk. We were never going to do anything. You suggested stopping buying my hypertension medication, my medicines that keep my blood pressure under control. Without them, I would have had a stroke in a matter of months. You know that. And they still suggested it. I saw her turning pale. I didn't mean it seriously. Then why did you write it? She didn't respond. I turned and walked away. Dr. Carter was waiting for me at the courthouse door. They're going to accept the deal. They have no choice. The judge made it clear that if it goes to a popular jury, any jury will crucify them. And if they don't pay, seizure of assets, account blocking. We can force payment. I smiled. This is the first time I've actually smiled in months. They accepted the deal. 30 days later, in February, we returned to the forum. They signed agreeing to pay $128,000, $78,000 for the loans with interest, and $50,000 for moral damages. Payment in a single installment until March. They also signed a commitment not to look for me again, not to come to my house, not to call me, not to send me messages unless I initiated contact. Violation would result in automatic restraining order. They signed everything with a funeral look. When we left the forum, Roberto tried to talk to me one last time. Mom, I hope you're happy now. I looked at him. My son, 42 years, hair I cut as a child, face I kissed every night for 18 years, eyes that I looked for fever when I was sick. Happy? Do you think this makes me happy, Roberto? Do you think any mother is happy suing her own children? I'm not happy. I'm surviving. You turned me into an enemy when you decided that my life was worth less than my inheritance. Now live with it. I got into Dr. Carter's car and didn't look back. In March, I received the transfer. $128,000 in my account. Dr. Carter deducted $38,400 from his fee. I was left with $89,600 clean. Money that had always been mine, but had become theirs without me realizing. Now he was back. I didn't celebrate. I just looked at the statement and felt a huge emptiness. I had won, but I had lost much more. The first thing I did was change my will. I went to the registry office with Dr. Carter and redid everything. I removed Roberto and Daniela completely. I left half of my assets to charities, 25% to Santa Maria Nursing Home, where I did volunteer work for years, 25% to the cancer hospital where Miguel had been treated. The other 50% I left divided between 3 people. Donna Irene, my 76-year-old neighbor who was the only one who visited me throughout this nightmare, who brought me food, who sat with me while I cried. Father Tomas from Our Lady of Perpetual Help Church, who gave me spiritual support without judging. And Clara, my granddaughter, because she was still a child and it was no fault of her parents. I also changed my life insurance. $200,000 that would go to Roberto, and Daniela would now go to the same charities. When I signed the documents, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. They would gain nothing from my death. They could continue waiting as much as they wanted, and it wouldn't do any good. 6 months have passed. July 2024. I hadn't spoken to Roberto or Daniela since March. No contact. Total silence. My life was slowly rebuilding itself, but differently. I sold the big 3-bedroom house where I had raised them. I couldn't stay there any longer. Every room had a memory that hurt. I sold it for $420,000 and bought a smaller apartment in Clearwater, closer to the beach, 2 bedrooms, 80 square meters, 10th floor with sea view, for $280,000 in cash. I left $140,000 that I invested in a conservative investment that yielded $8,000 a month. With that, plus my retirement of $3,200 from Social Security and the $2,400 from the pension I received from the Nurses Union, I had a monthly income of $13,600. More than enough. I spent an average of $6,000 a month, so I had leftovers. I was accumulating assets for the first time in my life without having anyone to leave it to. I thought about spending more on myself, but I didn't know how. I decorated the new apartment with furniture that I chose on my own for the first time. Before, I always consulted Roberto or Daniela. I always took their taste into account, thinking that one day they would inherit that house. Not now. I bought a beige sofa that I liked, colorful abstract paintings that I thought were beautiful, a Persian rug that I wanted. Each item was a declaration of independence. I joined a neighborhood seniors group that met on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the community center. I met 5 incredible women. Maria Rodriguez, 64 years old, Cuban, widow, 3 children who lived far away but called every week. Barbara White, 71 years old, American, divorced, 2 children who visited every month. Susan Chen, 67 years old, Chinese, widow, only child who lived in New York but came every 2 months. Patricia Johnson, 73 years old, American, single without children, but with nephews who adored her. And Margaret Davis, 75 years old, English widow, 4 children all attentive. None of them had gone through what I went through. They all had imperfect but functional families. I told them my story one afternoon when we went out for lunch at the Mexican restaurant on 3rd Street. When I'm done, I can tell you, everyone was crying. Maria hugged me tight and said, "We are your family now. You are not alone." And it wasn't. For the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. The seniors group organized monthly trips. In August, we went to Charleston, South Carolina, for 3 days exploring historic gardens and eating seafood. In September, we went to Savannah, Georgia, 4 days in colonial houses and ghosts. In October, we went to Key West, a weekend watching the sunset at Mallory Square. Each trip was a rediscovery of who I was, beyond being a mother, beyond being a retired nurse, beyond being a widow. I was Elena, just Elena. And Elena liked to travel. She liked to laugh with her friends. She liked to try new foods. She liked to take photos. She liked to wake up without strict plans and see where the day led. In November, the group decided to take a longer trip. 10 days in Europe in March 2025. Portugal and Spain, Lisbon, Porto, Madrid, Barcelona, complete package with flights, hotels, tours for $9,800. It was expensive, but I had the money. More importantly, I had motive. I had something to live for. I signed right away. It would be my first international trip. Miguel always wanted to go to Spain to visit his grandparents' homeland, but we never had any money when he was alive. Now I would. For me and for him. I started taking basic Spanish classes on Wednesday nights at the community college. There were 18 students in the room. I was the oldest by 30 years, but I didn't care. The teacher was a 28-year-old girl called Sofia, Colombian, patient and funny. I learned to say, "Hola, me llamo Elena. Where is the bath? ¿Cuánto cuesta? Una cerveza, por favor." Enough to survive. I started crocheting again, a hobby I had abandoned years ago due to lack of time. I made tablecloths, I made blankets, I made coasters. Maria suggested selling online. I created an Etsy account in December. I posted photos of the pieces. To my surprise, they started selling. First sale, set of 6 coasters for $35. Then baby blanket for $80. Then tablecloth for $120. In 2 months, he had made $1,400. It wasn't about the money. It was about creating something with my hands that people wanted. It was about having value beyond my will. In December, something unexpected happened. Christmas Eve, 7 o'clock at night, I was making a simple supper alone. Small turkey, mashed potatoes, salad, when there was a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole. It was Clara, my granddaughter, alone. 15 years old, long brown hair, jeans and pink blouse, backpack on her back. I opened the door in surprise. "Clara, what are you doing here? Do your parents know?" She shook her head, eyes red from recent crying. "I ran away. I took the bus. I found your new address by asking Ms. Irene. I let her in. I closed the door. Your parents must be desperate. You need to call them." "I don't want to. I'm sick of them. I'm sick of hearing them talking bad about you every day, telling you that you're crazy, that you stole money from them, that you destroyed the family." I felt tightness in my chest. "And why did you come here?" "Because I read that notebook. My father left it in a drawer and I found it. I read everything. I saw what they wrote about you. I saw the plans, and I realized that you're not the villain. They are." I started to cry. I couldn't hold it back. Clara came to hug me. We stood there in the apartment hallway crying together for a long time. Then I sat with her on the couch and explained everything from the beginning, every detail. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Grandma, I'm sorry for believing them at first. I didn't know. I thought you were wrong. But now I understand, and I want you to know that I love you and that I don't agree with what they did." I hugged her tight. "I know, daughter. It's not your fault. You're still a child. It's your parents who failed me and you by putting you in the middle of this." I made her call Daniela to let her know she was with me and that she was safe. Daniela appeared 40 minutes later looking panicked. He knocked hard on the door. I opened it. She entered without asking for permission. "Clara is leaving now." Clara looked at her mother. "No, I'm going to spend Christmas with Grandma." "No, you won't. Let's go." "Daniela," I tried to intervene. "Let her stay. Just tonight. I'll take her back tomorrow morning." Daniela looked at me with anger that I hadn't seen in months. "You have no right to be with my daughter. I'm her grandmother. You sued her parents. You're nothing to us anymore." Clara stood up. "Mom, you wrote that Grandma was too expensive to live. You suggested stopping giving her medicine. Do you think I'll respect you after that?" Daniela turned white. "Did you read that? That was private. It was disgusting. And now I know who you really are." Daniela tried to grab Clara's arm, but Clara dodged. "Either you let me stay with Grandma today, or I tell everyone at school what you and Uncle Roberto did. Tell your friends. I tell the whole family. Choose." Daniela looked at me, then at Clara, then at me again. She left, slamming the door. Clara and I spent Christmas Eve together. We ate turkey. We watched old movies. We talked about her school, about boys she liked, about her plans to study veterinary medicine, about dreams. At 11 o'clock at night, I set up the guest room for her. Clean blankets, fluffy pillow, lamp with soft light. I kissed her forehead like I did when she was little. "Good night, my love. Good night, Grandma. Thank you for not giving up on living." Her words hit me in the chest. I went to my room and cried myself to sleep. But it was a different cry. It was a cry of relief, of hope, of knowing that at least one person in that family still truly loved me. The next day, I took Clara back to her parents' house at 10 in the morning as promised. Daniela opened the door, but didn't say anything. Clara hugged me in front of her. "Grandma, Can I come visit you again? Whenever you want. Your mother has to let you, Daniela interrupted. Clara looked at her. You can try to stop me, but I'll find a way. I'm 15 years old. I know how to take the bus. And if you bother me too much, I'll go live with Grandma when I turn 18. Daniela didn't respond. Clara walked in. The door closed. I drove back to Clearwater with a lighter heart. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. January 2025 arrived. I had my birthday on January 15th, 73 years old. The group's friends threw a surprise party for me at the community center. Chocolate cake, balloons, small but meaningful gifts. I cried with emotion. I hadn't had a real birthday since before Miguel died. Clara showed up at the surprise party too. She had come by bus again. Daniela must have been furious, but she didn't call me to complain. Maybe she had given up on controlling her daughter. February was the month of preparations for the March trip. I went to the doctor for a complete checkup, reviewed all the tests. Blood pressure, 118 by 76. Chest x-ray, clear. Keep doing what you're doing. I smiled. I'm going to stay alive just to piss off whoever wants me to die soon. He didn't understand the joke, but laughed anyway. March has arrived. On the 12th, we boarded the Tampa flight to Lisbon with a connection in New York. Group of 18 people, mostly women over 60, some with husbands or children with them. I was with my group of 5 friends. The 8-hour flight was long, but I managed to sleep 4 hours with the help of a neck pillow that Maria lent me. We arrived in Lisbon on the 13th morning, 9:40. Cloudy weather, 16 degrees, smell of sea in the air. Hotel was in Bairro Alto, cobblestone streets, colorful buildings, tiles everywhere. Small but clean room, double bed, tiny bathroom, window overlooking orange rooftops. The first thing I did was call Clara on WhatsApp. She answered on the second call. Grandmother, you're here. I'm here. It's beautiful here. I showed the view from the window on the camera. She squealed excitedly. When I grow up, I'm going to travel like you. Yes, you will. And I'll be alive to see it. We spent 10 days exploring. Lisbon, Castelo de São Jorge, Belém with the tower and the custard tarts that were better than any sweet I had ever eaten in my life. Alfama with live fado that made me cry with emotion. Porto, port wine cellars where I tasted 20-year-old wine that cost €80 a bottle and bought a 10-year-old for 35 to bring as a gift to Father Tomas. Dom Luis Bridge crossed on foot with strong wind and beautiful views. Madrid, Prado Museum with works by Goya and Velázquez. Royal Palace too huge to see everything in one day. Plaza Mayor full of tourists, but still impressive. Barcelona, Sagrada Familia, that left me speechless. It was the most beautiful church I had ever seen and was still under construction after 143 years. Park well colored like a child's drawing. Barceloneta Beach where I took off my shoes and put my foot in the cold Mediterranean water for the first time in my life. Discovery. Every moment was proof that life was worth it. I posted photos on Facebook that I had recently created and commented on with heart emojis. They didn't react to anything. They probably blocked my profile. I didn't care. We returned to Tampa on March 23rd. The flight back was more tiring. Jet lag hit me hard. I slept 16 hours straight when I got home. I woke up on the 24th to a message from Clara. Grandma, my mother saw the photos from the trip and was angry. She said you're wasting her inheritance. Ha ha ha, that's great. I laughed alone in the room. Wasting inheritance that he would never receive. Perfect. April was the month to get back to routine. Spanish classes continued. Seniors group returned to weekly meetings. Crochet work continued to sell well. I had made $3,200 in 4 months. I started attending Mass again on Sundays at Clearwater's Church, St. Cecilia. Young priest in his early 30s, good homilies, choir that sang beautifully. I met a man after Mass on a Sunday at the end of April. He was alone too, sitting on the bench drinking watery coffee they served in the parish hall. Gray hair, trimmed white beard, height of 1.75 meters, light blue dress shirt, dark jeans, brown shoes. He smiled when our eyes met. I sat next to him. First time here? He shook his head. I've been coming for about 3 months. I came from Boston. I moved here to be close to my son, but he travels a lot for work, so I'm alone most of the time. I see. I'm Elena. Antonio. But everyone calls me Tony. We talked for 40 minutes. He was 74 years old, a widower for 5 years. His wife had died of Alzheimer's. He had been a math teacher for 40 years at a high school in Massachusetts. He had a 50-year-old son who was an airline pilot and lived in Tampa, but was always flying to some corner of the world. No grandchildren. Retired, living on a modest but sufficient pension. He liked fishing, reading mystery novels, watching baseball games even though the team was bad. I told my story too. Summarized. Widowed for 17 years, 2 children who no longer speak to me for complicated reasons, a wonderful granddaughter. I worked as a nurse my whole life. Now I was rediscovering life. I did not go into details about the legal process, too heavy for a first conversation. We exchanged numbers. He texted 2 days later, asking if I would like to have lunch. I accepted. We went to a simple Italian restaurant near the beach. Good pasta, reasonable wine, better conversation. He was funny in a quiet way. He told stories about impossible students he had taught. He imitated accents. He really made me laugh. I hadn't laughed like that with a man since Miguel. I was scared by that thought. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't ready, but he was enjoying the company. We started meeting once a week. Sometimes I have lunch, sometimes afternoon coffee, sometimes walk on the beach, always as friends, no pressure, no expectations. In May, Tony invited me to a real dinner. Chic restaurant, reservations made in advance. He's wearing a suit. I accepted, but I was nervous. It felt like a real date. I got ready carefully. Navy blue dress that I had bought in Portugal but hadn't worn yet. Black low-heeled shoes. Pearl necklace that Miguel had given me for our 20th wedding anniversary. Makeup. Perfume. I looked in the mirror before leaving and saw a woman I hadn't seen in decades. Woman who dressed up to be seen. To be desired, perhaps. I felt immediate guilt. Miguel had died 17 years ago, but he still felt like a betrayal to like another man. I took a deep breath. Miguel wouldn't want me to be alone forever. He had said this in the last week of his life. Elena, when I go, you won't be alone, you hear? You're still young. You're still beautiful. Find someone good who will treat you well. I had promised just to calm him down, without believing it would happen. But it was happening. Tony picked me up at 7 sharp. He opened the car door for me. Chivalry from another time. Restaurant was French, low lighting, candles on the tables, live piano music. We ordered escargot starter, which I had never tried before, and I thought it was strange but good. Main course of grilled salmon for me and steak for him. Dessert of creme brulee to share. We talked about everything. He told about his wife, Mary, what it was like caring for her during 4 years of Alzheimer's, watching her slowly forget about him until in the end she no longer knew who he was. He cried, counting. I held his hand on the table. I told him about Miguel, about cancer, about the 2 years fighting, about being with him when he died at 4 a.m. on a Tuesday in June, holding his hand, whispering that everything was okay, that he could go and rest. I cried too. Then I told him about Roberto and Daniela, all, the notebook, the process, the sentence, the removal. Tony listened without interrupting. When I finished, it said, "Your children are idiots. Sorry to be blunt, but it's true. They have an amazing mother, and they threw it away out of greed. It's their loss, not yours." I felt something opening in my chest, something that had been closed for a long time. At the end of the night, he took me back home. He stopped the car in front of the building. We sat in silence for a minute. Then he asked, "Can I see you again? We see each other every week now." "No, I can see you again as that, as a date, as people who are interested in each other." I looked at him, his face illuminated by the light from the street lamp. Kind eyes, shy smile. "Yes, you can." He smiled bigger. He leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Good evening, Elena." "Good evening, Tony." June was official dating month, a word that sounds ridiculous to people our age, but that was it. We were dating. We went out 3 times a week. He met my friends in the group. They approved. "He's kind to you," Maria said. "You deserve someone kind." Clara met him in July, when she came to spend the weekend with me. Dinner at my house, I cooked arroz con pollo, a recipe from Miguel's mother. Tony brought wine. Clara watched the 2 of us all night. After he left, she hugged me. "I liked him, Grandma. And I liked seeing you really happy. I'm happy. Now you are. Before you were just surviving." She was right. August was a month of decisions. Tony asked me to travel together. Weekend in the mountains of North Carolina. Isolated cabin. 2 rooms, he stressed. No pressure. I accepted. Trip was beautiful. Fresh air, forest trails, cool nights in front of the fireplace. On the second day, sitting on the balcony watching the sunset, he held my hand. "Elena, I don't know how much time we have left in this life. I'm 74, you're 73. It could be 10 years, It could be 20 if we're lucky. It could be less if we're not. But I don't want to spend that time alone. And I don't think you do either. Where are you going? I want to really date you. Exclusivity. Commitment. See where this goes? I remained silent, processing. It wasn't a marriage proposal. It was proposed that we try. Okay, let's try. He kissed me. For real this time. It was strange at first. Kissing from old people is different, less urgent, more careful. But it was good. It went really well. September came with unexpected news. Clara called me crying. Grandma, my parents are getting divorced. I felt tightness in my stomach. What? They fought about money, about what you won in the process. Uncle Roberto said that Daniela's dad didn't help with their lawyer's costs, and Dad said that it was Daniela's parents' problem, not his. Then my mother defended Uncle Roberto, and my father said that she always chooses her family over their family. Then it went downhill. Now they are talking to lawyers. I didn't know what to say. It wasn't my fault. I knew it wasn't. But I still felt heavy. I'm sorry, daughter. Don't be sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. They did it. And now they're paying. I'm just calling to let you know that I'm going to have to choose who to live with. And I'm going to choose my father. My mother is no longer a person I respect. He is sure. Absolutely. And you're still my favorite grandma. I hung up and looked out the apartment window at the sea. Part of me felt satisfaction. Revenge happening without me doing anything. Another part felt sadness. Family torn apart. Even though it was family that tore me apart first. I told Tony that night at dinner. He listened and said, "This isn't your fault. They chose greed over character. Now they reap consequences. You just defended yourself. But it still hurts. Of course it hurts. Because you still love them. A mother's love doesn't go away just because children are cruel. You're too good, Elena. Too good for this situation." I cried on his shoulder. He held me until I stopped. October brought more surprises. Roberto showed up at my building. Doorman called me asking if he could let me up. I hesitated. No contact permission had expired 6 months ago. Technically, he could try to talk to me. I accepted. When I opened the door, he was too thin. Deep, dark circles. Wrinkled clothes. "Hi, Mom. Robert, can I come in?" I left. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't offer a seat. We stood in the room. He looked around. New apartment. Decoration he had never seen before. "It's beautiful here. Thanks." Awkward silence. I came to apologize. I didn't respond. I know it doesn't change anything. I know I screwed up, but I need to talk. We made a mistake. We made a big mistake. It was greed. It was selfishness. It was lack of consideration. You worked all your life, raised us alone after Dad died, gave everything to us, and we repaid you by calculating your death as an investment. There's no excuse. There's no justification. It was inhumane. I continued in silence. He continued. "I lost my job last month, Sado. Sarah filed for divorce. She lives in a tiny apartment alone, paying child support for herself and the boys. I am broken financially and emotionally. Daniela, too. Thomas filed for divorce from her. Lost Clara. She's living with her aunt. He's taking antidepressants. Part of me felt sorry. Small part. And you're telling me this because what do you want? Nothing. I don't want money. I don't want you to take the process back because it's already over. I don't want to go back to the inheritance. I just want you to know that I regret it, in truth, and that I understand if you never forgive me. But I needed to say this." I looked at my son, 43 years old now, gray hair appearing, wrinkles that he didn't have before, shoulders hunched, red eyes, probably from crying. I still saw the 5-year-old boy who cried when he hurt his knee, and I blew on it saying it took away the pain. But that boy had grown up and become a man who wished for my death. "Roberto, I accept your apology, but I'm not withdrawing the legal actions. You and Daniela need to pay for what you did, not just for me, but for yourselves to learn. There will be no reconciliation. There will be no going back. What existed died the day you wrote that my life expectancy was a long time. You can follow your life, and I will follow mine. Separated. When I die, you won't be told. When you need something, don't look for me. It's over." I saw tears streaming down his face. "Can I hug you? One last time?" I thought about refusing, but something in me, some part of me that was still a mother even after everything, agreed. I hugged him. His body trembled in my embrace. He cried like a child. I let him cry for maybe 2 minutes. Then I walked away. "Now go." He nodded, wiped tears with the back of his hand, went to the door. Before leaving, he turned. "You were always better than I deserved. I hope you're very happy with the time you have left." He left. I closed the door. I sat on the sofa and took a deep breath. I didn't cry. I had run out of tears for Roberto a long time ago. I called Tony. "I need you here." He arrived 20 minutes later. He hugged me. I stood there safe in his arms and knew I had made the right choice. He had chosen me. November 2025. Now, 2 full years since that damned Thursday afternoon when I heard my children planning my death. I'm sitting on the porch of my apartment in Clearwater. It's 10 in the morning on Saturday, the 29th. Bright sun, temperature of 23 degrees, cloudless blue sky, coffee on the table next to me, newspaper open but not reading. I look at the sea and think about everything that happened. Who I was 2 years ago, a 72-year-old woman, broken, humiliated, considering giving up on life because my own children wanted me to die. Who I am today, a 73-year-old woman, whole, dignified, living fully. It wasn't a magical cure. There are still difficult days. I still sometimes dream about Roberto and Daniela and wake up sad. I still see mothers with children on the street and feel a pang of envy. I still look at old photos and miss what could have been. But the difference is that now the pain doesn't define me. It's just part of the story, not the whole story. Mental list of concrete achievements that I make at the moment looking at the sea. My own paid-off apartment valued at $310,000 today. $450,000 in investments yielding an average of $9,000 per month. Trip to Europe scheduled for May of 2026. Portugal and Italy this time. 22 days. With Tony together now. Excellent health. All tests normal at the last appointment last month. Blood pressure 116/74 without medication because the doctor said he didn't need it anymore. Solid romantic relationship. Tony asked for us to live together, and I'm seriously considering it. Crochet work selling well. I made $6,800 this year, and I already have orders for Christmas. A book about my experience in the final stage of revision with a small publisher called Sunshine Press, interested in publishing. Tentative title, When Children Calculate Your Death, or in Portuguese, When Children Calculate Your Death, scheduled for release in March 2026. Occasional news about Roberto and Daniela that arrives through Clara, who visits once a month now. Roberto has found a new job, but with a lower salary, managing a small construction project in Sarasota, lives alone in a 1-bedroom apartment, pays a pension that eats half his salary, sees his children every other weekend, is in therapy. Daniela got a job as a secretary at a dental clinic after years of not working. She lives with her aunt in a small house. Clara lives with Thomas but has lunch with her every other Sunday. She is also undergoing therapy and taking medication for depression. Neither of them attempted contact again after that visit. It's from Roberto. Good. I don't feel pleasure in their suffering, but I don't feel sorry either. I feel indifference, which is the true sign of healing. I think of Miguel and imagine him being proud of me for defending myself. I visited the cemetery last week, the 22nd anniversary of his death, 17 years. I told him everything that happened. He said he was finally okay. I placed white roses that were his favorite on the grave. Said I met someone. I said I thought he would approve. I felt peace. I returned home and received a call from Clara. She had just been accepted to the University of Florida for veterinary school starting in August 2026. I celebrated with her on the phone. I offered to help financially if needed. She said her father would pay, but she thanked him. I realized that my pain has become purpose. Support group I attend at the community center called Surviving Family Abuse, asked me to share full story at a meeting last month. Room with 15 women, all over 50, all with stories of abuse by adult children or other family members. I told everything. When I finished, everyone was crying. An 81-year-old woman named Rose hugged me tight and said, "You've given me hope that it's possible to start over." Now I am the group leader along with a professional facilitator. I help other women understand that they are not crazy, that they are not dramatic, that family abuse is real and devastating, and that it deserves justice. I have dinner with Tony tonight. Japanese restaurant he discovered near the beach. Tomorrow, Sunday, I'm going to Mass. Then lunch with friends from the seniors group at Patricia's house. She's making Spanish paella. On Monday, I have a routine appointment with Dr. Harrison. Tuesday, Clara comes to have dinner and sleep here. She's on vacation from school. Fourth Italian class, I started last month thinking about the trip in May. Fifth support group, Friday. Tony and I are going to the theater to see a play that's playing. Next Saturday, day trip to Sanibel Island with the senior group. My schedule is full. My life is full. At the end of this sunny Saturday day, I look in the bathroom mirror while brushing my teeth before going out to meet Tony. I finally recognize the reflected woman. It's not the one who was betrayed. It's not the one who got revenge. It is the one that survived and flourished. She is the one who understood that family is not those who share blood, but those who share respect. She is the one who learned that while she breathes, she has the power to change her story. I changed mine. I turned pain into strength. I turned rejection into freedom. I turned trauma into purpose. I'm 73 years old, and for the first time in my life, I'm living for myself. Not for husband, not for children, not for other people's expectations. For me. And I discovered that living for myself is the most revolutionary thing that women of my generation can do. If this story touched you, leave your comments saying where you are watching it from and share it with someone who needs to know that it is possible to start over. Like if you believe that no woman deserves to be treated as disposable, and remember, as long as you breathe, you have the power to change your story. I changed mine. You can too.